What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What's up, Fantasy Points? We are back for the Week 12 DFS cage match. I cannot believe it's already Week 12. If you're not familiar with this show, we're going to be snake drafting teams on DraftKings, regular DraftKings teams within the salary cap, all of that. But just for a three-man contest, we're going to be playing against each other in this contest for the main slate on Sunday. And we're going to be playing for charity. Each of us picks a charity each week, and Fantasy Points will donate to the charity of the winner's choice. It's always me. It's always Jake Tribbey below me. We're here every week as the hosts of this show, and then we have a rotating guest spot. This week we have Adam Ship My Money Share as the guest. Adam, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to doing the show. I kind of blanked when, like you said, it was a snake draft. I just kind of forgot about salary cap, so I was like, oh, that's easy, and just like set rankings real quick. And then now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be really screwed on this, I think.
Jake said before the show, because Adam asked the question, like, is this a regular DraftKings lineup? And Jake said, well, don't worry, Adam, Neil never tells anybody how this goes, how this works. And I didn't say it, but I did tell Adam exactly how it works. So that's really on Adam, to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, especially like forgetting that there's a salary cap on DraftKings. I should have that shouldn't have needed to be said to me.
Also, yeah, that. Jake, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Had a solid week in week 11 thanks to Taysom. If only my cage match record matched my tournament ROI this year, I'd be a much happier man.
We are together on a 3-week losing streak. The guests have beat us each of the. Is it 3 or 4? I think just 3 weeks. At this point.
It's 3.
We're down 3 straight weeks. It's been kind of a brutal run. We'll get into last week's how that went. But first, let's get into the charities. And as you can see on the screen, this is the charity that won last week. This is Canines for Warriors. This was Mangone's charity. Mangone, of course, got the W last week. So Fantasy Points will be donating to Canines for Warriors. I will once again be representing Ruff Start Rescue, a local rescue animal shelter here in Minnesota, where I know some people. I know they do great work. So that is what I will be playing for this week. Jake, you'll be playing for Beloved Asheville again. Any words? I guess you've done it every week, so maybe it's just the same thing. But do you want to say anything about Beloved Asheville?
Yeah, it's just a great local grassroots charity in Asheville, North Carolina, and obviously they need the help now more than ever, given the hurricane situation.
Yep. And then Adam is playing for the Baltimore Hunger Project. Adam, why did you choose the Baltimore Hunger Project?
It's just a local charity that I like to donate to at times, just helping school-age kids that don't necessarily know where meals are coming from with meals over the weekend, like kids that are, getting meals at school, but then are kind of on their own over the weekend.
Very cool. Very nice. All right. Those are the charities we're playing for. We're going to start our draft in a couple of minutes, but before we get into our draft for this week, we just want to do a quick review of the lineups from last week. And of course, we'll do Jake's going to review his, I'll review mine, and then Adam will review Travis Mangone's winning lineup from last week, which Adam has not seen. I have not sent it to him, so he'll get to do a quick glance over at it, see if he likes how the lineup looks. Jake, once again, as usual, in last place. How do you feel about your last place lineup this week?
I mean, I still, my spirit is unbroken, and honestly, I do like this team. But yeah, this was a pretty disappointing showing, especially given the scores that you and Travis Mangone put up. Purdy, McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings, I thought was a fairly reasonable stack. The usage for McCaffrey has been outstanding the last 2 weeks. The big scores will come. Scott Barrett noted in the Everything report that 8 of San Francisco's 9 plays inside the 10-yard line have been pass plays since McCaffrey came back. That should regress this week. Green Bay has the lowest pass rate over expectation allowed inside the 10. It's almost double the next closest team. So for whatever reason, teams have decided to pretty much exclusively run against Green Bay inside the 10, which, should boost McCaffrey's usage a bit. Bijan wasn't a play that I was necessarily in love with. It would have been nice to maybe get Kyron there instead. Still wouldn't have made a huge difference to the final outcome. I think when, the slate kicked off, Curtis Samuel was certainly the play that I was the most worried about. With Amari Cooper healthy, we weren't really sure, or, mostly healthy. We weren't really sure what the route share would look like for Curtis Samuel. And I'm not sure. I forget exactly how high it was, but I know he still turned in, the 5 receptions plus the receiving touchdown, ended up being my best value play effectively on the slate. Jacoby Myers was, a strong play, but obviously got overshadowed by Bowers. And then Ingram and Njoku were 2 tight ends that I was happy with. They made their way to my own builds. I think I probably overestimated the upside case a bit for Ingram, given Mac Jones was at quarterback, but that also was just an extreme, domination. Jacksonville scored 12 points lower than their implied team total. So yeah, difficult week, and definitely frustrating to see the fire emoji by Curtis Samuel and basically no one else.
Yeah, Curtis and Juwan Jennings also put up a big score for you, but yeah, you could have used 10 more yards out of Juwan Jennings. Obviously, big disappointment from your stud running backs. And yeah, the Jacksonville performance, when Detroit's putting up 52 points, you'd expect Jacksonville to answer in some fashion, and they just did not. My team came in second place. It's funny, I felt really great about my Devin Achane pick, my Puka Nacua pick. Felt pretty good about Keyshawn Boutte at 3,500, looked really good. I felt really good about Davis Allen as a value pick. So I got my 2 favorite values on the slate last week. Davis Allen put up 0 fantasy points. Keyshawn Boutte put up 7.3. So they were kind of disappointing. The part where I felt like I made a mistake. So I felt good about my early picks. Then I picked Audric Estime instead of paying up at running back. And I thought about going to Breece Hall there. And honestly, so clearly Audric Estime himself didn't work out. But I think because I went to Audric Estime, that kind of allowed me to get to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff. So it felt like a huge mistake at the time. But I think it actually made it competitive for me, because obviously Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown went completely off. Ultimately, I can't really complain about 158 points on this. I think it was a pretty solid team. Looked like it was going to come down to a third straight week where I was going to lose by 2 fantasy points. And then Lil Jordan Humphrey had a 40-yard touchdown late in the game for Mangone and just completely separated from me. So, Debo let me down. But ultimately, everything else I feel like went kind of, for the most part, as expected. Estimate a little bit disappointing, but yeah, not felt okay about it. But we got beat by Mangone. Adam, you don't need to give a player by player evaluation. I mean, you can say as much as you want to about Mangone's team because you have not even looked at it yet. But how, for a 3-man contest, from what you recall from last week, do you like the looks of this lineup? What stands out to you about it, etc.?
Yeah, I actually really like it. I was on pretty much all of these guys in DFS, either in my actual lineups or at least when I went through the slate, I liked them. Jameis, I thought, was clearly a really good value at quarterback. He has him, I almost said with Kamara, but he has him with Tillman, who, in this format, it doesn't matter his ownership. So Tillman obviously looked good at that price. Pickens in a really good matchup. Montgomery was in a good spot as a huge favorite against Jacksonville. Kamara was a very clear, obvious play. And then you also had, correlation on the other side of Jameis. I liked Taysom Hill. Wouldn't have been my favorite guy in a 3-man, I guess. But I thought that he was likely to have a bigger role than people seem to think. So that looks perfectly fine. Tight end obviously is a wasteland usually. Kenneth Walker, fine. Jets against Richardson, fine. I think it's a pretty good. And then Humphrey, obviously, I assume the last guy in, just kind of fit in there, which sure.
Yeah, the Humphrey pick, when he made it, I kind of questioned it because it was he's a 30-40% route participation guy, but then he got there with a touchdown late. And honestly, he might have beat me even without the late touchdown from Lil Jordan Humphrey. I think he was ahead at the time. So yeah, well constructed lineup. Taysom, I did not realize that 46.5 fantasy points was within the range of outcomes for Taysom. I thought it was he could get 20 if things go well for Taysom. I did not expect that from him. Pretty incredibly. Also was bad for me in DFS. I meant to get to I don't remember whatever the field was at. I was he seems like a fine play. I probably want to match the field, and ended up with only 2% Taysom or something on the week. So he just beat me in all games that I played last week.
And Scott Barrett deleted the Taysom Hill blurb from the slate breakdown that I wrote. Yeah, I know. Absolutely
very
devastating. Yes. Ridiculous. So
ridiculous.
Yeah, couldn't believe it.
All right, enough of our reviews. Let's get into it. Let's start drafting some teams. Adam, I did tell you this. You probably forgot. You're probably going to claim that I never even told you. You get to choose your draft spot. Do you want to draft first, second, or third?
I mean, I guess I want to draft first, even though I have no idea what strategy I should be using here, but I think I still want to draft first.
I mean, totally up to you.
Yeah, I'll draft first.
All right. Do you have an idea of who you want to pick first?
Pretty sure. What the hell did I do? I think give me a second. Yeah, I mean, I'll take McCaffrey.
Okay. Christian McCaffrey. Any particular reason? Is it did Jake sell you on him, talking about how teams run on Green Bay in the red zone?
Yeah, I didn't really know who this guy was until Jake started talking about him.
Yeah, just a good play. Just good play in a pretty good spot against Green Bay. I think that makes sense. As the first pick, I am extremely torn. Wait, actually, I don't know who goes next. Wait, it's
you. I'm pretty sure I went first last week, right? And it's an even week, so it's you.
Yep, it's an even week, so it's me. All right, so I do go next, and it's a tough spot. I think this week, because there's a player who looks like the best point per dollar play on the slate by a bit, but I think that he could very easily be affected of another player on his team, and I'm debating whether I want to pick that player. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to figure out who I am talking. Actually, I'm clicking in the wrong spots here. You're probably able to figure out who I am talking about if you look at point per dollar stuff. Do I want to risk it? You know what? I do. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to take Kareem Hunt with my first pick. Looks like great, best possible matchup with Carolina. I think it's possible that Pacheco comes back and still is, playing second fiddle, at least to start, to Kareem Hunt. So at 5,700 against Carolina, if he gets even 70% of the workload that he has been getting, I think Kareem Hunt is going to look pretty good. So I'm going to take that risk with my first pick and then send it to Jake to make a couple of picks. But Jake, first I want to hear your thoughts on my Kareem Hunt pick.
Yeah, I think that was probably your worst first round pick of the season. If Pacheco comes back, you are probably cooked, and Pacheco is expected back. I don't know if I've seen any practice updates from today, but
well, why?
Yeah, I was very happy to hear you say Kareem Hunt. All
right. Well, then we'll see, buddy.
Yeah, we will. So I have back-to-back, right, Neil?
You do. You have back-to-back.
All right. So I'm going to go with Devon Achane, and I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson here. This is a really tough slate for value. I debated going a bit more value heavy with these first two picks, but these are just, effectively my favorite plays on the board. I would have been pretty surprised if both of them made it to me at pick 3 and pick 4. And they did. So I'm pretty excited here. Obviously the usage for Achane has been incredible. Only knock on him is that occasionally Mostert is coming in for an inside the 10 carry, but target shares there, the hyper efficiency is back. And it's a, pretty strong matchup with New England. Anthony Richardson feels a bit point chasey, but we know absolutely nuclear upside. I would be a bit worried about the floor, so maybe not, the ideal quarterback pick for this format, but I also don't really love any of the other quarterback options on this slate. I think Tommy DeVito is legitimately interesting, and he was a guy that I wouldn't have taken this early, but had AR been off the board, he was a guy I would have considered. Either way, though, Detroit runs a ton of man coverage, and obviously we know Anthony Richardson can run. It's why they've been particularly vulnerable against rushing quarterbacks over the last 3 or so years. On top of that, our data charters noted that this seemed like the first game all season where Indianapolis's offense had been fully designed around Richardson's skill set. They said nearly every play was an RPO. He had 10 designed carries, excluding kneel downs, which is tied for the most by any quarterback in any game this year. I mean, obviously we don't expect much from Richardson as a passer, especially within 20 yards. So why not just run the greatest athlete to ever play the position over and over and over again? And against Detroit, the ball should be in his hands a ton. Because the spread here is massive. So I love these picks. This was honestly my ideal start when I was thinking about the show tonight.
All right. Well, you're going to feel pretty stupid when Alvin Kamara puts up 25 fantasy points at 57. Sorry, not Alvin Kamara. When the guy who was on the slate scores a bunch of fantasy points. Tom notes in our private chat that Pacheco was limited today. So maybe Will's up still for Kareem Hunt at 5,700. I'm not regretting
3.3 yards per carry.
Against Carolina, that's going to be 3.5 yards per carry, Jake.
I know, but he might only get 12 carries, Neil, if Pacheco's around.
That is possible. I'm going to go. So it's back to me for my second pick. I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers, just as the top value wide receiver on the slate. Nice kind of mid-range value. Kind of seems to be where I am going here. I don't love the matchup, obviously, with Denver. Scares me just a little bit, but the volume has just been so great for Jacoby Myers, and he's at 5,100 that I'm willing to put up with the terrible matchup and quarterback play. I just hope that he gets there via volume.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I will say that because this is such a tough slate for value, that was like I was sort of considering just attacking the mid range fully, like you're kind of doing with Hunt and Myers. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, Adam, back to you for your second and third picks.
Yeah, I'm going to go Hunter Henry and Juwan Jennings. Trying to get a little bit of value since I went McCaffrey early and he's expensive. I think that Henry looks like a good value at tight end, and then Jennings I think is still really underpriced at 5,600. Seems to be really legitimately good in addition to having a bigger role. Also some correlation with McCaffrey being on the same offense. So I like that also. Probably gives me a little bit higher floor too, I guess, in this format, since I'm just getting, two guys that are likely to be catching a lot of passes for San Francisco. If one runs bad on touchdowns, the other one hopefully is getting them. So I like having them together here.
Yep. Looks like a strong play to me. Hard to really argue with either of those picks. All right, it's coming back to me. And I still sort of debating what I want to do here, but I think I'm going to continue on my chosen path here, continue attacking the mid-range. I am going to go and I'm going to pay for Travis Kelce at tight end, continue with that team stack. Just hope that I'm getting all the points for the Chiefs against Carolina, which should be plentiful. So still have 55-66 left per player after that pick. Jake, I'll send it to you for your third and fourth picks.
Yeah, I was really thinking about Kelce for my next pick, so way to snipe me. Man, this is just such a bad slate at wide receiver. I'll go with the guy who is probably my favorite running back value, assuming Pacheco plays, in Ramondre Stevenson. Don't love having two running backs on the same team, but the hit to Ramondre's volume when New England is trailing isn't super significant. It's only 10 or 12% measured by expected fantasy points, and the usage has just been incredible. I mean, he is the usage of a back who should be 66, 6,700. Man, let's see. At wide receiver, I'm gonna go with Rome Odunze. Not a pick that I feel great about, but I do think he's effectively the best value play left on the board. And I also believe he had the highest target share of any Bears receiver at any point this season last week. I can double check that pretty easily, but yeah, I imagine he'll probably end up being decently popular because there's just nowhere to go under 5K at wide receiver.
Trending in the right direction. Okay, so it is back to me. This is tough. I think I'm going to go with Cortland Sutton. He's just been awesome. The role has been great. He's been playing really well. Seems to have a pretty solid floor. Matchup is fine with the Raiders, I think. So I think don't want to put him in my flex. Throw him in a wide receiver spot. So yeah, just another strong mid-range value play, continuing to attack that part of the salary range. And I'll send it back to Adam. You have 53-16 left per player with 2 picks to make now.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Tommy DeVito for more value. Obviously sucks, but 3-man format and has run in the past. So does kind of give you that floor, which I think is really nice. And 4K is obviously incredibly cheap. Should let me do pretty much what I want to do the rest of the time. Also going to go with Brian Robinson, 5,600, has just looked really good this year. Good matchup against Dallas as far as Washington likely to be playing from ahead. We've seen Daniels struggling a little bit more recently, whether that's injury related or not. The team says it's not, but either way, could just lean on the run a bit more, and that should be Robinson. So going to go with him. All
right. Nice pick. Yeah, I didn't even realize that Tommy DeVito. I saw that he was one of the top values on the slate, and I kind of ignored it. Didn't realize he's actually 4,000. so even cheaper than I expected him to be there. I have
he's rushed for over 35 yards in 3 of his 6 career starts. Drake May has started 6 games this year and has rushed for over 35 yards in 3 of them. So definitely some underrated upside there. He had 22 fantasy points in one of those games, over 4x his current salary in 2 of those 6 games. I mean, he'll be interesting for DFS, especially, like I said, on a slate that's really starved for value.
Yep. I'm going to gobble up some of that sort of value here with Romeo Dobbs is just 4,600. I'm surprised to see Dobbs that inexpensive. Has a pretty strong role on the Packers. I like that value. So I'm up to 57.50 left per player with 4 picks left. Going to send it to Jake, and you have back-to-back picks now. Your 5th and 6th picks.
Yeah, it felt a bit like DraftKings pushed this week's pricing a bit more toward like playoff pricing dynamics, where they did kind of lower, the higher end prices a bit more than you would normally see. Like, our most expensive quarterback this week is only $7K, and Jay Daniels. Granted, we obviously don't have a lot of the studs. It's shaping up to be a fairly tight week. So I have 52.40 remaining here. I think I already took Achan, man.
Sure did.
Yeah. All right, I'll go Jonnu Smith for my first pick here. Obviously, the usage has been awesome, and he's a guy who has historically been pretty strong after the catch. Right now, popping as our top tight end value. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being either Henry or Kelsey at the end of the week. I was debating about Tyreek Hill, but I think on a team with Achan, I probably want to avoid using that much salary on Dolphins in a divisional game. And then I will go with, this is really tough for my next receiver pick. Actually, I'll go with a flex option. Give me Kenny Walker. Usage has been just outstanding for Ken Walker. And this is a pretty favorable spot, high total game. Not too worried about the spread because he's seeing pretty awesome usage while trailing compared to leading as well. So he's a guy that I've really liked playing in DFS, although we haven't had the massive slate breaking performance quite yet.
Still have a little over 5,000 left per pick with your defense and 2 wide receivers left. All right, it comes back to me. Like I said, I have 57.50 left per player. Need a running back, a flex, quarterback, and a defense. All right. Have some ideas. I'm going to think on this for a second here. Interesting. A lot of the players that I want to take are in sort of tough matchups, so they don't look as good as I expect them to. I could go with the other running back in that game. I do have the salary to do so. Yeah, screw it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with James Conner. Again, pretty nice matchup for Conner. Seattle is definitely a beatable team.
Are you worried at all about Trey Benson? Have you heard of this young man?
Should I be? What's up?
Seems like it. He kind of earned his first serious usage in a non-blowout related, or for non-blowout related reasons, in week 10 before their bye.
Interesting. So that's the downside to not doing research before this show is so you don't see stuff like he's still popping as a strong value. James Conner is. That would be good for me, I think, in best ball if Trey Benson can come along, or at least my season long teams I have him too.
Yeah. So Benson had 33% of the backfield's carries through the first 3 quarters in week 10. James Conner's route participation is still outstanding though. So, you could pretty easily get bailed out on pass game volume. It'll be interesting to see how they divvy up the inside the 10 work if, Benson really is a thing.
Yeah.
It could just be because Conner was beat up too. I mean, that's always possible that they're like, hey, he's a vet. We have, a bye coming up.
Yeah, he's also old. They've been using him a ton. They're also a playoff team, a team with playoff aspirations. So I don't know. I think that I'm pretty confident that Connor is going to continue to see a pretty solid workload, even if it's not like as good as it has been, and the matchup is nice. So I guess the answer is no, not really concerned about it. Adam, will send it back to you to make your 6th and 7th picks. You have 55.75 left per player.
All right, so I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf at wide receiver. Again, just getting some correlation from the same team. Smith and Jigba cost me $250,000 a few weeks ago, so hopefully I can, get it a little bit back here. Yeah, so decent spot here, I think, against Arizona, and two guys that are likely to get a lot of targets. Smith and Jigba still, I think, 11 targets last week with Metcalf back.
Wait, so tell me about what happened with Smith and Jigba. How did he cost you so much money a few weeks ago? Was that the
wow? You're making
leading?
This poor man relive his trauma.
I mean, yeah, everybody loves hearing about people's bad beat stories. So I want to hear Adam's bad,
especially Adam's bad beat stories.
Yeah,
those are fun. Those are my favorite bad beat stories.
Yeah, no, I was winning the FD Millie in the Rams Seahawks game, just kind of needing that game to end.
Oh, that's right. I remember now.
Yeah. And I was in a tough spot. Like I was fading Rams defense points and Geno points and Smith and Jigba points. But like the only thing that would make me go from like winning to breaking even on the day was Smith and Jigba just going nuts, and caught the long 4th down pass to end up then scoring a touchdown to send it to overtime, where he caught another long pass. So yeah, it was just a really, really expensive like 5-minute stretch. So hopefully he comes through for me here and everything's even.
Yeah, totally even. If you win the cage match, that's worth about $250,000 or whatever that was for sure.
Yeah.
Did
it's
you
worth that much
pick?
to your spirit?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, to your spirit, it's definitely worth that much. So now Adam has 4,700 left. You're in a good spot. So you have a defense and your flex remaining with 4,700 left. So plenty of salary to make a good pick there. It's going to come back to me, and I don't need to make my quarterback pick yet because you guys have both picked your quarterbacks already. So I am looking at the flex here. Interesting. So Montgomery is 6,700. Would go there. Could pay a little bit more for Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I can afford to, depending on what I want to do at quarterback. Yeah. I'm going to go with, I've got to do some quick math here. So I have 16,500 left. Oh, I think I can afford to do whatever. I'm just debating whether I actually care about like who is the actual better play between Gibbs and Montgomery this week, because they should be playing with a lead. You'd think they're going to give it to Montgomery.
It's really hard to know. This was something I struggled with a lot last week because Montgomery's seeing all the inside the 10 stuff. I didn't check to see what the split was inside the 10 last week, but over the previous month it had been about 85% Montgomery by expected fantasy points by raw snaps. And then Gibbs is just playing way better. Gibbs is averaging close to 6.5 yards per carry. Montgomery's a lot closer to 4. I mean, I don't think anyone would be shocked if they ended up giving Gibbs a bigger workload because he's been playing so well. But then like Dan Campbell every week in the Coach Speak Index is talking about how David Montgomery is, the greatest running back of all time. And, is the engine that drives their team forward. And, they're going to keep him on the squad until 2030 or whatever. I mean, they love the guy. So it's tough. I
know it's very tough. And I'm also just trying to do some like quick math of what I could do if I take, depending on who I take here. I think I'm going to make it easy on myself because of the salary. I'm going to do a little tiebreaker here, and I am going to go with Montgomery. He is 6,700 in my flex. So now I have 4,900 left per player, and I will send it to Jake for 7th and 8th picks.
All right. I think I know what I want to do here. It's just going to leave me in kind of a not great position for my last pick, but I'm no stranger to that in the cage match. So I think I'm going to go with Bears defense and Amon-Ra St. Brown as my 2 picks here. Bears defense is currently our top value according to the fantasy points projections. Generally don't give a ton of thought to defense beyond what the projections say. I feel like they capture a lot more than my mind ever could. And then when it comes to Amon-Ra, I get a little bit of, same game correlation with Anthony Richardson. And this is a guy who's just been ridiculously consistent from a fantasy perspective as of late.
I missed everything that you just said. Apparently I was frozen. Everything turned black for me and was like doing a refresh thing. So I missed all of the analysis there because the whole thing was frozen. I don't know what happened. Apparently you guys could still see my screen though, I assume. I don't know. It would be bad if I am kicked out because I am manning the screen here. So you'd have to continue, but I don't know what happened. Didn't show anything saying that I had bad internet connection or anything like that. Did you make 2 picks, Jake? Can you tell me who you picked there?
Yeah. I grabbed the Bears and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It looked like the screen was still working, but you were frozen.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
In your little camera. But so I mean with Amon-Ra, it's really just, for one, Indianapolis historically has been a really tough slot matchup. Kenny Moore has not been playing particularly well this season. I think they're pretty vulnerable to slot wide receivers. He's also just been getting absolutely fed. The volume has always been there. He scored a touchdown in 8 straight games. So, certainly consistent scores there. I would say, especially before week 11, that maybe you could nitpick the ceiling, especially if it's a blowout. But we saw them, really pour fuel on the fire last week. That last touch, I was tilting my face off as a guy who didn't play a lot of Goff and did play like a ton of Jameis, a ton of Bo Nix, basically all the other quarterbacks who did well. Seeing that last Goff touchdown to Amon-Ra was such a backbreaker for me. Get a little bit of correlation with Anthony Richardson as well. This game has, I believe, by far the highest total on the main slate, right? It's at a 50.5, 51. Next closest is 47.5 when I was looking earlier. So, this leaves me in not a great position for my final pick with 4,400. I don't really like any of the options, but I'm just going to hope I can Lil Jordan Humphrey my way to victory here with my final selection.
Yep. Yeah, looks good. I haven't looked closely at the $4,400 options, but if it's like last week, it's going to be pretty barren. But if you score a touchdown, it's going to be good enough. All right, so I have 9,800 left. I think I know what I want to do at quarterback, but I'm going to see if there are any defenses because I can wait on quarterback if I want to. Bears defense is only 2,500 against Sam Darnold.
Neil, I just drafted the Bears defense. If you don't.
Oh shit, you did.
Yeah.
Listen, I was a little bit distracted by the whole like freezing and like I just kind of zone out when you're saying stuff. So you know how it goes.
That's understandable.
All right, so I can't do Bears defense. Didn't want them anyway. I think they kind of suck. It's a bad choice, bad selection. This is tough because Tua is back. I don't love many of these choices in the price range that I want to go to, but should I let it affect? Yeah, no. All right, let me look at the quarterbacks again.
While Neil thinks about this, I have a question for Adam. Adam, how do you generally approach defense for tournaments? Is that just a position where you're relying on projections and you hope you hit the touchdown, or do you have more of a general philosophy for that?
Yeah, that's generally how I approach anything. But like with defense, it's actually something kind of interesting where I probably play popular, like just value defenses a bit more now than I used to. I used to just pretty blindly play like the cheapest, lowest owned defenses that I could, just because there's so much volatility at the position. Now that like using sim tools more, I still just end up getting kind of, those underpriced defenses, even when they are relatively popular, pretty decent amount of the time. But yeah, ideally I'm just spending as little as I can and not letting it take upside away from the rest of my team.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And that's sort of been my experience as well, as I have been fairly surprised at how often the sims are pushing you toward just the chalk defense and, kind of forcing you to maybe get different elsewhere with your stack or a one-off play.
I made my choice. I am going to, and I use the fantasy points projections, and I just chose the top projected defense that will allow me to continue to choose the quarterback of my choice. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals defense against Seattle. They don't, they project pretty well, just kind of a shot in the dark. They've been playing a lot better later than they were earlier in the year. So yeah, I think Cardinals look fine to me.
Neil, does it at all concern you that head coach Mike McDonald said that Geno Smith is a perfectionist? He's mentally tough and poised. He's just a stone cold assassin late in games. And you drafted a defense who's facing this guy. Are you sure about that?
No, does not concern me one bit. I believe in the Cardinals. I believe that they will create some chaos, maybe a couple takeaways, and hopefully a pick six. So yeah, not at all concerned about Geno Smith and his perfectionism. All right, Adam, you now get to make your two final picks. You have 9,400 total left over, 4,700 left per pick with a flex and a defense.
Yeah, I kind of painted myself into a tough spot. I didn't look far enough ahead when I took Metcalf. I think I could have gotten probably like a better receiver than him. Now I'm like in this range where I don't really care what defense I take, but I don't like really any of the flex players that I'm going to end up stuck with. So I think I'm going to end up going with Tyrone Tracy and the Minnesota defense. Thought about Tampa Bay because it's not like I drafted DeVito to score a ton of fantasy points. I just kind of drafted him to run around a little bit. And then Tracy obviously can kind of just catch some passes. But since I have both of them and I have the salary anyway, I'll just go Minnesota. They project closely enough.
Yep. Added a little bit of correlation there, but we'll talk about that. We'll finish the draft and then we will each review our respective teams. Looks good. Adam zeroed out his funds, which is always feels good when you can draft a team that zeroes out the funds. I am not going to be able to. I have 7,000 left over. To me, Jaden Daniels against the Cowboys looks pretty awesome. I'm sort of debating going to Mahomes because I do have double correlation with Kareem Hunt and Travis Kelce. It's obviously a fantastic matchup with Carolina. Actually, this is a good spot where I can check the projections, who projects better. I know we have some concerns about health with Jaden Daniels. I don't know how much to be really concerned about it.
Yeah, so our injury expert, Doctor of Physical Therapy Edwin Porras, said that he's not concerned at all about the ribs. Dan Quinn said the same thing. That said, maybe there is still something to be worried about, but generally, if the coach and a doctor aren't signaling any red flags, I'm okay with it. And this does just feel like the ultimate get right spot for Jaden Daniels against this Cowboys defense that is
it really does
completely given up. Although I am part of me is still worried, and I don't know how much stock you guys put into something like this, but I do think it's meaningful. The idea that, and I mean, the data backs this up. Cliff Kingsbury offenses have just gotten dramatically worse, in the second half of seasons compared to early on. Adam, is that something you're kind of factoring into your own analysis?
I just learned it, so no. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's one of those things where I would rather that not be the case, but it's also not going to impact anything that I do. I'm more concerned that, Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback, and obviously he looked great early on in the season, but the most likely scenario was, even if he does end up being really good, that he takes some sort of step back, at least in the short term. Defenses get more tape on him, whether he's 100% or not, there's obviously a difference, especially when you think about somebody that runs as often as him and isn't exactly big. There's a difference between not being anywhere close to too hurt to miss games, but also just being a little sore and banged up and whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think, again, I would rather that not be the case, but I did think that, Kingsbury made surprisingly good adjustments early in the season, it seemed like, to get the offense going. So hopefully there's more of those to come, I guess.
Yeah, and even if I was concerned about that, it wouldn't factor into anything I do against Dallas. A defense that bad, it really doesn't matter.
Well, and it's one of those things and obviously doing shows and doing content and stuff, it can be kind of difficult to put everything in perspective. But even if you're 100% sure that this offense is going to be worse in the second half than it was in the first half because of Kingsbury, you're talking about Jaden Daniels' projection moving by a fantasy point or something. Maybe a fantasy point and a half.
Yeah, wouldn't affect it that much.
Yeah, that's one of the funny things about doing like projections. We have a weekly projection meeting, and you'll have Scott Barrett come on and be like, "Oh, but it's the perfect spot for Derrick Henry. Like the matchup is perfect. Like everything's perfect." And it's like, all right, man, we can boost him by 1.2 fantasy points at most. Like we're never going to get him to 27. I know you want him to be 27. He's going to go from like 22 to 23.1 or whatever. You know, it's one of those things where I don't think it's very easy to bake those narratives into your mind a lot more than they would ever matter for projected fantasy points.
Yeah, and then when you think about range of outcomes, it's even like more diluted because the median projection moved half a point. His ceiling is still 50 or 45, and his floor is still like 6.
Yep, exactly.
It's one of those things that you can IKB it as a ball knower if you want to factor those things in on your own and like give a big boost to a player that is in a great spot. You can do that certainly, but like for projections that you're putting out there, kind of hard to want to juice things that much. Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, even for mine, like guys that I bump, it's bumping like Jameson Williams last week. It was like, this is as good a spot as you can possibly get. Let me bump him, 0.8 of a fantasy point or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Adam, I know you're playing NBA tonight. Have you been tracking it at all?
Yeah, I have it open. I don't. Şengün's playing horribly, so if he doesn't turn it around, I have no chance at anything.
I have a good amount of Şengün also, but the real story, as Josh Gillen points out in chat, Ty Jerome 27 real points at half, at 50% ownership.
Yeah,
so I have a lot, but I'm still well below the field.
What do you guys?
I
think
have 57% on DraftKings, 50 on FanDuel, so like right around the field.
Oh damn. Okay, nice. Sorry, Jake. What do you say?
I was going to ask, what do you guys think is the most tilting DFS sport? I'm pretty much football only. I'll dabble a little bit in college basketball because I love my Bearcats, but I'm really curious what you guys think.
Whichever one I'm currently playing.
Yeah.
Probably NFL. So it's tough. Like I think it's probably NFL, but also like NFL is the easiest. So like you make the most money and it makes it less tilting. But like just the massive swings that come on relatively random stuff. Like baseball is like that too. But baseball, it's like nothing's really happening for most of the slate. So usually you're just not really going to get, like, you don't really get tilted by your guy making outs because he's expected to make outs. But like your guy getting tackled at the one, repeatedly in a game is just so brutal. And there's so much more money on the line in NFL too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think NFL probably would be my answer also. Josh says NBA is by far the worst because of news, but I like that. Like that's what I like about NBA. It's like every time news breaks, I'm like, oh, that's exciting. I'm going to adjust things for this news. Like, injuries obviously are like the most frustrating thing, and that happens in NFL quite a bit. But yeah, I would say NFL the most frustrating.
I'm not obviously as familiar as you guys are with NBA. I'd imagine there is NBA news that comes out so late that you can't make adjustments like 2 minutes before that game locks and you just can't quite get the CSV in time, or does that not happen often? Not
too often anymore. It used to happen a pretty good amount of time. NBA got stricter with their reporting rules. Okay. So, I mean, there's still some stuff. I mean, the other day, I don't remember what team it was, announced a starting lineup, and then the game started, and it was like, oh, just kidding. It's a completely different lineup, or like a different center. It was the Pistons. They announced Isaiah Stewart starting, and then the game started, and it's like Jalen Duren starting at center. But you still get stuff like that, but it's not nearly as often. I mean, like 2016, you had when Derrick Rose was on the Knicks, just reports like nobody's seen Derrick Rose. They don't think he's in the building. Nobody's really sure. And then like after lock, it's like, yeah, nobody knows where Derrick Rose is.
I forgot about that one. That was a good one. Yeah. The Derrick Rose game. NBA is kind of weird. And there's just so many games like on a given night that like weird stuff is going to happen a lot in NBA just because of volume. But yeah, it can be very frustrating, particularly when starting lineups are wrong. MTM Revolt says Hartenstein is blanking Robert Williams. I thought Robert Williams would come in after Hartenstein left the game and he would crush. So that's probably not going to go well for me tonight. But I am ready to make my pick here. I am going to go with Jaden Daniels. I thought about, again, Mahomes because I do have Kelsey and Kareem Hunt and just hope for like get all the games, all the points for the Chiefs. But I'm hopeful that Jaden Daniels will run quite a bit in this game. Take advantage of that bad Dallas defense. So I think I'm happy with that pick. Leaving 200 on the table, but I didn't see any defenses that I liked better than the Cardinals at 2,800. So I'm okay with leaving a little bit on the table here. Jake, I'll send it to you for your final pick, a wide receiver for 4,400 or less.
Yeah, I'm checking one last thing here. This is a little tough because our highest projected, and it's only by a couple tenths, is actually Kayshon Boutte, which would force me to leave 900 of salary on the table. That would lead to a pretty alpha win when I obviously, inevitably win the Week 12 cage match. But I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to go with my boy, Noah Brown, in a solid matchup against Dallas. I guess, the concern would be game script here. Maybe Washington just doesn't have to pass at all. But at the very least,
Brian
you
Robinson
can say,
scores 5 touchdowns early.
Yeah, that could be a bit of a problem for the Noah Brown play. But he's been over a 70% route share in 4 straight games. One of the top players by yards per route run, a lot of the per route metrics. I think he's really good. It's really is just a bit of a volume issue. And hopefully he can at least see some higher quality targets against a Dallas defense that really can't defend anybody run or pass.
We all have a piece of the Washington offense, so all kind of leveraging against each other should be a fun one. We are done with the draft, so we'll do a quick review of each of our teams. Jake, we already have yours open, so do you want to do a little review of your team? How do you feel about how the draft went for you?
Yeah, this is a team that I'm really happy with. I didn't go low enough with my value picks to be worried. Notably worried about any of these guys. I guess Noah Brown, maybe again, there could be some volume concerns there, but everywhere else, I'm really, really happy with the picks that I made. I think I got 3 of the best running backs overall based on raw volume. I got, the best value quarterback in Anthony Richardson. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think is a pretty great pay-up option at wide receiver. Always happy with Johnny Smith. He's going to score 3 or 4 80-yard touchdowns today, further burying the Waddle donkeys. So if there are any left, I would imagine probably not at this point. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this team. I thought, picking third today would be pretty rough, especially if Achane and Richardson were off the board. But managed to get both those guys.
Yeah, nice looking team. Can't argue with it. Other than the fact that I, of course, have the better team here. I have Jaden Daniels, just an alpha quarterback, going to put up 30 here. I think he is due. Kareem Hunt against Carolina, also going to put up 30. I mean, he's going to be running it the entire second half. They're not going to rely on injured Isaiah Pacheco coming back. They're clearly going to hand it to Kareem Hunt over and over. James Conner, not really concerned. He got a little bit of a break with the bye week and with Trey Benson the week prior. So he's coming in fresh. He's only 6,500. Again, going to get 1 million carries. Jacoby Myers, been getting every target. Cortland Sutton, been getting every target. So just great volume there for both of those two. That game, they're going to run up the score. Romeo Doubs, just 4,600 for a full-time receiver on a very strong offense. Gonna do great there. Travis Kelce, 5,800 against Carolina. Again, I think Kansas City just going to put up 1 million points. I think Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt are going to condense those points. David Montgomery, Detroit's going to get up big. David Montgomery is going to run every play the entire second half. And then, of course, Cardinals defense going to take advantage of the imperfect Geno Smith. So there you go. Feeling good about it.
Neil, I'm noticing a lot of old men on your team. Do you think that's because you feel like they're your peers, or?
I just like good football players, Jake. I like kind of wily vets is sort of my, I can relate to a wily vet, Jake. I think these are hard workers. They're grinders. So yeah, it's maybe the age brings in a little bit of wisdom, brings in a little bit more grit as they get older, a little bit of old man strength. That's kind of that is kind of my genre. So
can you relate to these old guys being outperformed by the younger guys at their same position?
I don't have any of those guys. Travis Kelce's still probably the best tight end in the league. Cortland Sutton has 1 million young receivers on his team, and he's just crushing all of them. Jacoby Myers, same thing. Can you actually name a better player than any of these guys at their position on their team?
Well,
maybe
you
could
did
argue
ignore all of those running backs on your roster.
There's nobody on the Chiefs outperforming Kareem Hunt. Actually, name one.
Have you heard of Isaiah Pacheco?
Yeah, he's not outperforming Kareem Hunt.
Well, his ankle's been broken, so not over the last couple of months.
See, that comes with the old man strength. You don't break your ankle as easily.
Wow, I didn't know that your bones get stronger with age. This is
we're
breaking some scientific research on this show.
Yeah,
Rest in peace, Kareem Hunt's ankle this week.
I mean, feels inevitable. As long as it's in the fourth quarter, I'll take it. Adam, your team, finally, how do you feel about how the draft went for you? Is this the team that you were aiming to draft?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously was aiming because I knew ahead of time anything about this show and what I wanted to do. But yeah, no, I'm actually really happy with it. I paid down at the positions that I would prefer to pay down at. Obviously, Tommy DeVito, not the most exciting play, but he's so cheap that it doesn't really matter too much, especially in this format. I think, it's not like it's super likely that either of you hit the quarterback that's going to score 40 this week or whatever. So I think paying down there made sense. Paying down at tight end, I'm always fine with, and Henry gets so many targets. The only thing that I think I maybe would have done differently, but I don't even know if I would have, is planning the last few rounds a little bit better. Like, I think I could have maybe done something like Ridley instead of Metcalf, and then going a little bit cheaper at defense would have let me get like Gibbs over Tracy or something, along those lines. But I don't think that's a huge deal. And I do like that I have, two pieces of the Niners offense with like a 23 or 24 point total, to the two top pass catchers on Seattle in what should be a competitive game with like a 24 team total. So I think that kind of increases the floor without sacrificing ceiling. I really like Brian Robinson at this price in this spot. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with the team overall.
And you really believe clearly in that Giants offense. You're taking Tommy DeVito and Tyrone Tracy because you just want to gobble up all 7 points that they score in that game.
Yeah, every rushing yard that they get, I will have.
Yeah, no, looks like a good team. All right, I think that'll do it for the plays. So let's talk about what we have coming up the rest of the week. I, of course, tomorrow will be doing a show with Adam in the morning. We will do a showdown breakdown of the Thursday night football slate. I'll be doing another show on my YouTube channel, The Flannelverse, in the evening for the Thursday night football show. And at Fantasy Points, we'll be publishing my Thursday night football article tomorrow. So that's what I have coming up in the short term. Adam, what do you have? Oh, actually, before I do want to break, I want to make this announcement before we get into YouTube. Before I forget, Tom reminded me we're not going to have a show next week. We're not going to be doing a cage match because it is Thanksgiving week. There's a lot of Thanksgiving game content, so we are going to skip a week of the cage match. We'll be back in 2 weeks for the show. I just want to get that out there before I forget. Adam, we'll be doing the show tomorrow morning. What else do you have coming up the rest of the week?
Yeah, doing the show with you in the morning, going to get back doing my NBA DFS tournament show on the Endgame Syndicate channel tomorrow. Skipped that today, just didn't have time to get to it with every team on the slate, basically not telling us who was going to be playing. I was just kind of behind on projections and didn't want to add in an hour of that, but going to get back to that tomorrow. I think there's 4 games, and then most likely we'll do that again on Friday. So yeah, that'll be on the Endgame channel.
Very nice. Check that out. And Adam, you can find Adam on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Of course, in the Endgame Syndicate Discord. Those are the main places people can find you. Anywhere else I'm missing?
No.
Okay. Jake, what do you have coming up the rest of the week, and where can people find you?
Yeah, all my content is over at fantasypoints.com. I'll be helping Scott Barrett out with his weekly slate breakdown that goes up on Saturday afternoons. I will not let him delete whatever this week's Taysom Hill blurb is. Friday night, I'll be doing Cashing Points with Grant Barfield and Hilo, where we go game by game, just talk the slate from a DFS perspective. I always find that to be a very insightful show. I learn a lot from my co-hosts doing that show. And then afterwards, I do the Underdog Drafter Party with Ryan Heath at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays. We draft underdog teams, talk about our favorite scroll downs, top values, all of that good stuff. And I will use this as an opportunity to once again invite Neil Orfield onto the show. The people have been begging for it. Every Friday we get dozens of comments saying, "Where's Neil?"
Sure.
Neil needs to school these young kids, show them how to draft, and he's just never there. So Neil, are you going to come back from your cigarette run to be with your kids, or what's the deal here?
Yeah, I definitely believe you that those comments are streaming in like on all of your shows. People are probably clamoring for Neil. I forget what I have. I already turned down an invitation to be a guest on a show on Friday night. I don't remember what I have this week. It's going to be tough. I'm just going to be straightforward about it. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. The more I think about it, I'm like, man, the timing of that show is just so brutal for me after I do my late afternoon Friday show. So I want to do it. I want to do a show with you and Ryan, but the timing of that show is just a tough one. So hopefully, I don't know, we'll see one day, but probably not this week. Actually, definitely not this week. I already turned down a guest spot because I've got something going on. So, but one of these weeks maybe.
I will never stop asking, Neil, so don't you worry.
I appreciate that. All right. That is going to do it for the week 12 DFS cage match. Like I said, we will not be back in 1 week. We'll be back in 2 weeks for the week 14 slate, myself and Jake and another guest then. But appreciate all of you watching. Make sure you sign up for Fantasy Points if you have not already done so. Great tools, great content. Check it out. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks, Adam. Thank you, Jake. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.